Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. That's not my intro. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Frigid North. We're back with our 2006 Mazda MPV. It's got the 3-liter in it, and we just got done doing a power steering pump on it. And so now we're going to jump in and diagnose the misfire issue. The customer's concern is that he said it's got a surge. It's pretty clear it's got a misfire, whether it's a full cutout or just a single cylinder. You can feel it going down the road. You can sometimes feel it at idle, but you can definitely feel it bucking down the road, and you can feel that it cutting out. So we're going to dive into that and see what's going on. The engine cranks over fine. It doesn't seem like it's got any compression issues there. We did swap out this motor about a year ago. We put a used motor in it. He had a bunch of timing issues with it. It was diagnosed by somebody, just some guy, random guy working on it in his yard, and left halfway torn apart, and then it sat for a couple years with that. So that's the history of this. And so in doing so, it sat for a couple years with everything open. So all the systems were open. So the ignition, the injection system is all open to the atmosphere for that time. So who knows the condition of that? And that was discussed when we originally put the motor in. You know, this could be a problem down the road because of the exposure that it had for that long of a time, open to the elements. And so he understood that, and this is just a work van that he uses it for, and so there's nothing fancy about it, and so he's not really concerned about a lot of things with it, just he wants it to run right. And so first thing we're going to do is we're going to check it for codes and see what we see there. All right, so we're going to go to scanner, let it do its thing. We're going to go to Mazda. Where are you at, Mazda? There you are. Automatic ID. All right, there we go. And let's do a full code scan. Go ahead and close that. Cylinder number 6. Bank one warm-up catalyst efficiency under limit. Okay, we're not too worried about that. I don't think that's our issue. That's on the opposite bank anyway. 403 EGR circuit fault. Now that could be an issue as well. So, but number 6, that's good because I believe our number 6 cylinder is on the front. I'll show you what I mean. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our battery maintainer on. Because some of these tests we're going to have the key on, of course, and without the engine running. So we're going to use this to keep the battery maintained, and this is nice. You don't have to worry about walking around a machine. And if this has to go up in the air for anything, this can go right up there with it, as where the rolly charger, it stays on the ground, or you got strapped to the top of the car or something like that when you get the car up in the air. So this is a nice thing to have. We ordered this off the Amazon machine. It's the Pro-Logix. Sounds like a rocket. Looking in here, I don't see anything crazy obvious. What I don't want to do is really disturb it just yet. I want to get a scope on there and see what that looks like. So let's get the exhaust hose hooked up so we can run the car inside without having to open the door, because it's pretty chilly outside. All right, we're back after taking a day off of work, and so what I did was I cleared the codes. And then I ran the engine for a while, and it didn't seem to do it when it was cold as much. It did it more when it was hot. It won't flag it as a code. So what I did was I accessed the mode 6 data. That is data that's displayed in the OBD2, and it shows us, it gives us misfire information. And we had misfires on number 6. And so what I did was I swapped coils over to number 5. I swapped number 6 with number 5. Got it warmed up, went and did a road test. It still got the misfire. After swapping the coils, and then I looked at the mode 6 data, cylinder number 6 continues to climb in the misfires. And so I'll show you that here real quick. Okay, so as I said, the DTC count is still 0. And let's go ahead, just for giggles, we'll do a self-test. Key on engine off, self-test. Let's do that. Continue. And no codes present. All right, so let's just go through the whole thing that we can. Let's do memory. And no codes. Now, does it have a pending code? I would think it surely would have a pending code by now. Let's see what it's got. Come on. Ah, it's back. It finally came back. It didn't do this when I was on my road test. Now, I'm going to show you what I was talking about with the mode 6 data. So let's go to generic functions. So what we want is the onboard monitored systems, also referred to as mode 6. So let's go there. And it's going to bring up the different data on each cylinder. And I have my test results here from when I checked that out. And we'll just show you on the screen here. And we'll just go in cylinder order, not firing order, but just cylinder order. So cylinder number 1. All right, so we have a counts of 15, so 15 misfires. And it'll record a minimum of 0 to a maximum of over 65,000 misfires before it starts over. And so this is registering 15 in the current drive cycle. So 15 is right where it was when I started and where it was during my second check. And now this is a third check, so it's still there. So let's see. It's cylinder number 2. And it was at 22. And it's still at 22. Number 3. And number 3 was at 14, and it's still at number 14. Okay, so it hasn't climbed. Let's go to cylinder number 4. So number 4 was 18, and it's still currently 18. Cylinder number 5. Where are you, number 5? Right there. $27, and it was at 27 last time as well. Now let's go to number 6. So cylinder 6. Okay, we're at 1,298 counts. Now, when I first checked this, it was at 1,080. Okay, 1,080. And it is now at 1,298. And during my second check, it went to 1,270 from 1,080. And that's when I did a road test, parked in the parking lot, checked it real quick. And then here we are at 1,298. So it is definitely misfiring on number 6. The other ones we're not concerned about. Even if it had a 1 misfire, maybe a 2 misfire, we're not concerned about that. This one is obviously climbing at a steady rate. And this is the one that we're feeling as we're going down the road and at, you know, when we're idling in gear, mostly when we're in gear. So we feel it with a load. So the reason why this is helpful is because if you don't flag a code, remember, I didn't flag a code for a long time. And it still hasn't, it's just flagging a pending code. So it's still not going to turn on the check engine light. Now it's getting to the point where it's getting close to turning on the light, but it still hasn't. It's still thinking about it. So if I see a few more, I'm going to go ahead and turn the light on. That's what the computer is thinking. And so But we can get around that by going to the mode 6 data and seeing how these performances are on each cylinder. And so this doesn't tell us exactly what is the problem. It doesn't tell us if it's ignition. It doesn't tell us if it's fuel. It doesn't tell us if it's compression. It doesn't say anything like that. It's just simply saying you have a misfire on that cylinder. And like I said before, I swapped coils, so the problem should have followed to cylinder number 5, and it didn't. Now that's a real quick down and dirty, hey, this is real cheap, I'm going to do it this way, I don't have to do a lot of testing, and swap the coil and see what happens. If you don't have bidirectional scan tools, if you don't have a scan tool that can read data, that's, you know, you don't have scopes and all that stuff, then that's a way that you can do it real quick and on the fly. The problem is, say this cylinder was on, this misfire was on cylinder number 3. Well, number 3 is on the back of the motor up against the firewall. Your intake plenum goes over the top of that. It covers it. You can't get to it. You can see it through one of the gaps, but you can't, you're not going to pull you're not going to pull that coil out. There's no way. You got to pull the upper intake off to do that. So fortunately, our problem is on number 6, which is up front. It's easily accessible. So I swapped it with number 5, and it did not follow to number 5. It's on number 6. I want to put it on a scope and see what that pattern looks like. This coil is a 2-wire system, and so you have a power side that feeds the coil with power constantly, and that same circuit feeds all the coils simultaneously in parallel at the same time. However, the ground is what controls whether or not that coil is going to fire. So the PCM controls that leg, and it says, okay, I want this coil to fire. It closes the contact in the computer, boom, closes the circuit, and allows the coil allows the coil to operate. So we could have a power side issue on that, meaning that we would have a problem with the circuit from where it splices into the others all the way up to the connector. It could have an issue there. It could be that it's the ground side issue as well. It could be the computer is got a driver problem and it's saying, I'm not really sure when to fire this number 6, and it could be that. So it's something not to rule out. We could have a computer problem. Could it be an injector problem? Yep, sure could. Could it be an injector circuit issue? Absolutely. You certainly can. Could it be a compression problem? Potentially. I don't believe it's a compression problem, meaning that we have a low cylinder consistently. It still had a fast enough crank to where it's not going to be, and for that fast of a crank, we didn't hear any hiccups, didn't hear any hesitations. You know, you didn't hear the no 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 no. You didn't hear any of that. That would indicate you have a compression problem. So how do we diag this? Well, the best way to do it is to get it on a scope and see what the pattern for the secondary ignition looks like, see how the circuit for the primary ignition looks like, and that'll help rule some things out. Because if we have a problem with our circuit, it's going to show up in that pattern, in those patterns. If we have a bad plug, it should show up in that pattern, in the secondary pattern. If we have a bad injector itself, like maybe the pinhole is hanging up, we should see that in the pattern for the injector driver. So there's a number of things that we can do, and so the best thing to do is to do the scope and break it out. Now, if you don't have those items, what you can do is just pull the plug and look at it and see how it looks. Without the right equipment, you're really going to be just, unless it's an obvious problem, like you got a back connector on the injector or a back connector on the coil, you know, you're going to be likely changing parts until you get it right, and that can be really expensive. And you can wind up changing everything until the only thing you haven't changed is either the harness or the computer. Computers are expensive when they're newer. They're still expensive when they're older, but they get harder to find when they're older. And so because they become, you know, the dealers stop repairing them and they stop supplying them. So
then you got to find somebody who can actually repair it if you're able to, which means then maybe you got to go find one in a junkyard and see if you can get the VIN wiped off it. And there's ways around things, so you can do something like that. So anyway, enough rambling. Let's figure out how we're going to tie into this thing to check these patterns and move on. Let's get this guy fixed so we can get him out of here, get him back on the road. Okay, so we've got our scope set up. We've got our leads ready to go. And I pulled this back a little bit so I can see the colors of the wires to be sure that we're tapping into the right one. Because with the tape up here, it's hard to see the colors because of the fading with the age and the oils and stuff that get on them. And so now I know which one to tap into, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So my screen is back here. We're using the Pico automotive. This is the Pico Automotive 7. It's the newer version that came out. And so this is going to show us how our primary and secondary are looking with this coil. So as you remember, we were dealing with the number 6 cylinder. Right over here, son. We're dealing with the number 6 cylinder, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like I said earlier, they kind of mimic Ford in the way that they do things, and so that's how Ford numbers a lot of their engines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's exactly what Mazda has done. And so the number 6 is the one that we're going after. As you remember, it had the most misfires out of everything, and it was continuously counting up on those misfires with the mode 6 data. Number 5, it didn't show anything when I was recording and showing you guys that. However, it did jump one misfire when I was doing my road test. So we'll look at that one too and see how it's going. And then we'll compare it to a known good one for sure, which we'll tag on number 4 here. All right, so we're gonna tap into the control circuit from the computer, and that's going to be the ground. Okay, try not to get pinched by that pulley. That pulley runs the water pump. It's on the back of the engine, so it's kind of annoying. Anyway, so if we scan over to our screen here, you can see every once in a while when you can feel the rumble on the engine, and you'll see the distortion of the secondary side of the coil. The primary looks good. I don't see any issues there right off the bat, but the secondary, it's got a little blip. And then when we snap the throttle, go ahead and just keep your focus on that screen. When we snap the throttle, that's when we really see the problem. All right, now let's compare it to a known good one. We're going to put this on number 4. Okay, and watch that screen there, Sterling. See, our distortion is good. I had it back connected earlier, that's why it was jumping around. But now, if you look at our secondary waveform, it's staying solid, and the fire line is shortening. That's because it's under load by snapping the throttle. But if you notice, this section here is staying nice and uniform for the most part, when the other ones were just whoosh, whoosh. So now we're going to hook it to number 5, and we're going to see what that coil is doing too. All right, here we go. I'm just going to let it idle and see if we get a blip once in a while. Okay, so it's not misfiring at all right now. I don't feel it in the motor. I got my hand on the motor right now. I'm not feeling any cylinder misfiring. All right, I'm going to go ahead and ramp the throttle up. See, number 5's doing it too. Even though that didn't show up on our mode 6 data as a continuous problem. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to shut the motor off, and I'm going to swap number 6 with number 1 to verify that the plug is not the problem, that it's just the coil. So we're going to see how that goes. So let's shut it down real quick, and then we'll swap those coils over. All right, so this will be
we're going to tap into number 6 now, but this was the coil from number 1. That's just getting closer and closer to that pulley. I don't like that. Okay, I got a good reading there. All right. So I'm going to let it idle for a second, see if I feel a blip. I felt the blip right there. If you notice the screen didn't do anything, I'm feeling a couple blips. Blip. Blip. Okay, so I'm feeling the roughness in the motor. Just stay on the screen there. I'm feeling the roughness on the motor, but I didn't see anything on that screen. So now we're gonna snap the throttle and see if we get any change. And that looks good. Now we're gonna put it on the number 1. Go ahead and swap around. Now we're gonna swap it to the number 1 cylinder. This is the one that was on number 6. Okay, I'll let you know when I got a rough spot.
Oop, you saw it.
Grab up. Yeah. Right there, right there, right there. So that's correlating with it with a misfire at idle. Now I'm going to snap the throttle. And of course, it's going to definitely misfire. All right, there's that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing with coil number 5. We're going to swap that and put that word. It's like that shell game, right? You start losing track of where you're at. So number 5 coil, we're going to put it where the number 6 is, because now we know the number 6 is good, and we're going to verify that's okay. Plug wise, we're going to verify what we're doing now is we're verifying the plugs are good, and because they're brand new. When we put the motor in, they were new. The coils were transferred from the old motor. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so this is the one that was on number 5, and it should be rough because we know that coil was bad. I was doing it earlier. Okay. Now we're gonna tap into number 5, which was on number 6, and it was a good coil. I know you guys have totally lost track of what's going on here. That's because I've been doing the swappy here with all 3 of them multiple different times. But this one should be good. And if you can see, that's the number 5. Let's spin around here, Sterling. That's the number 5 tapped in. And so these 2 new coils, we verified that all 3 plugs are good because we swapped the coils all the way around, and the problems are following the coils, not the plugs. And so we know we need 2 new coils. We'll get those coils ordered up. It's a little late in the evening today. And then when we get those in, we'll put them in and verify the repair. Okay, our coils arrived. And so normally I like to use OEM electronics, such as coils, sensors, motors, etc., electrical motors. And even engines if possible. I think you just get a better quality product that way. And we've been seeing a lot of aftermarket silliness lately, so it's I try to stick with OEM. The problem that we have is our nearest Mazda dealership is 40 miles away. It's been snowing for the past couple of days, and so it's been gross. Roads are nasty. They're not going to deliver out here, so we got to go and get it, and so we just don't have the time to do that. So we ordered them from one of our local parts stores, and so we went with the next best thing. So we found Bosch units, and we're going to use those, and we're going to put those in. So we're going to replace them, and then we're going to clear the code that was pending. Remember that one popped up as a pending code, and then once that happens, we're going to start it up, warm it up, and then we're going to throw it on the Pico and watch the waveform and make sure that our repair is completed. So we're going to go from there. So our ignition coils for this unit were the Bosch units. guessing that's the part number right there. The 221-504-701. And they're made in Slovenia, wherever that is. The box is marked Germany, so I'm guessing maybe Germany? I don't know, beats me. Anyway, it's not from around here, which nothing is made from here anymore, which is sad. So what I like to do is just put a dab of dielectric grease in the end of the plug. That just ensures that you get a good watertight seal there, keeps the moisture out, and then just helps. It also helps the boot slide over the plug a lot easier too. So it's good to do that. So pop out the old, grab the spring that keeps falling out, pop in the new. Boom, boom. Use the old spring. Dielectric. You don't need to fill out the whole tube, by the way. Just put a little dab on there and that's enough, because it's going to push it and connect it right onto the spring and the plug itself. No need to fill up the whole tube. That's way overkill. You don't need to crank these down. So once you get that feel, just back off. You don't need to hammer them in there. All right, we're gonna go in to engine, codes menu. We're gonna go clear codes, continue, let it do its thing. DTC's cleared. Now we're just gonna do a real quick test. Make sure they actually did clear. Sometimes on different vehicles, it might take a couple times to clear them out. Sometimes you got to wait for the key to be turned off and let it sit for, a couple minutes or so. Sometimes it depends on the vehicle. All right, so we got the car warmed up and we've got our scope hooked up to it. We're currently on the number 6 coil right here. I bent this lead away to keep it away from that pulley. Don't want to get it stuck in there. We do have our lead grounded to battery. That's an important thing you want to do. Here's our pattern. We're looking pretty good so far and liking what we're seeing. So let's go ahead and snap the throttle and see how it does. Far better from what it did yesterday. All right, we're gonna hook it under the number 5 coil now. Okay, now we're on the number 5, and we're gonna do the same thing. Remember, both 5 and 6 were giving us problems yesterday. All right, we're gonna snap the throttle. That's a verification of our fix. All right, everyone, that's a wrap for this one. We verified our repair by checking the coil operation of number 5 and 6 with our Pico scope, our lab scope. We don't have the misfires anymore. It's running smooth. We don't have the hesitation. We are still going to down the road and
We're just going to make sure that there's nothing else going on with it, make sure that bucking and jerking is gone, which I'm confident it will be now that we're not misfiring. And it's looking pretty good. So again, something it's necessary to have some kind of diagnostic equipment. And so it's helpful. Now there's things you can do, such as what we talked about, which is just do swaptronics. You just swap coils around from one to another and see how they do. In this case, that may have bit us, right? Because we swapped number one, initially we swapped number 6 with number 5, and it didn't follow on this in our situation, but later on we had a problem with that number 5, right? And so it still could have bit us if we just relied simply on swapping components around. So, and then in some cases like this here, you can't do that without removing this intake. This intake has to be removed to get to the back coils. So if you have a problem that's suspected on the rear, swaptronics is not really the way to go. It takes too much time. It takes a couple hours to remove this intake and to reinstall it. And that's a lot of time for a one hour Diag. And sometimes you have to charge more for our Diag. There are ways to do it without having to tear all those components apart to isolate where you need to go. If it shows you need to get back there, then that's what you got to do. But in our case, this is we are fortunate to have it right here up front, so that I'm glad for that. So the labscope that we use is the Pico 4425A, and it's the newer version that has come out here in the last couple of years. And it's a good unit. It's a 4-channel scope. You do a lot of things with it. If I had the money, I'd do the 8-channel scope, just because there's a lot more functions you can do all at the same time. Especially now that we're looking at multiple camshafts on these engines. So if you wanted to correlate all 4 camshafts with your crankshaft, you need 5 channels. Well, this is only 4 channels, so that minimizes what we can do. We can still do it, but it's better if we can look at everything at the same time if you're in that situation. Now, typically you're not always in that situation, so it's not always needed. And again, you can get around it and figure it out. So, but if you can get an 8-channel, more the better. So I'll put the link, a link to this in the description. And the laptop is just a Joe Blow laptop. There's nothing special about that whatsoever. It's not a tough book. It's nothing. It's just an off-the-shelf $400 unit. Nothing great there. And so, anyway, that does it for us here. And so, if you like the channel, please subscribe. Hit the like button, ring the bell, so that way you get notified whenever new content comes out. We are actively working on content now as we speak. There's editing that's going on. We have right now we've got 5 or 6 that we're working on in the cutting room right now. So. Let us know what you'd like to see. We can make that happen too, possibly. So, after all, this is for you guys. And so, if you can learn from it, that's great. If you get entertained by it, sometimes that's great too. And we appreciate you guys watching. All right, take care. See you next time.